Hey guys, it's Sally here again. I'm here in my clinic in Sydney and we are today going to be talking about tweaking exercise. That's based around progressions and regressions. So it's really important that we understand some of the basic fundamentals behind changing an exercise to make it a bit harder or a bit easier to help with our rehab and help with our training. Now, just because an exercise is regressed doesn't mean that it's easier. We can actually regress an exercise and it really helps us focus within our body what we're doing, and it can also highlight areas that we might need to work on, areas of instability, areas of loss of motor control. So what kind of things can we tweak for progressions and regressions? Well, I have them all written here. We have base of support. So the base of support is how much area on the ground are we covering. A larger base of support is generally more stable, so it would be a bit easier. The smaller our base of support comes, the exercise normally becomes more challenging. We then have lever length. So this is how long is the lever moving away from our center part of the body. So for instance, if I was doing a lateral raise, this is a lateral raise with my arms in a longer lever compared to a smaller lever. So this shorter distance from the body makes this easier to control. We then have tempo or time under tension. So a tempo would be how long are we doing the exercises for. For example, I might, if I use my lateral raise again as an example, I might lift my arms for the count of 2, hold for 1, and lower for 1. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 1, however you're counting it. So I'm creating more time under tension with the lift. And this is biasing my concentric muscle activation. Now, if that was flipped around and I had 1, 1, 1, 2, I would be biasing my eccentric muscle activation. If I was having my longer time in the hold, that would be biasing my isometric. So I would have 1, 1, 2, 1. And you can increase these for as long as you want. So we can change these tempos, change our time under tension, and create either a progression or a regression within this. We then have movement complexity. So let's say, again, I'm just doing a bicep, a very simple exercise, one joint moving, focusing on one thing. I might then combine it and have a squat and bicep curl, adding more complexity to this movement. I then might combine it with a squat, bicep curl and twist, or a squat, bicep curl and add an overhead press. So again, making it more and more complex. This will generally always be a progression. We have the addition of an unstable surface. So this might be a BOSU, a wobble board, using the Swiss ball, the over ball, a foam roller. So creating an unstable surface makes our nervous system work a little bit harder. We usually have to activate more muscles, so this will be a progression. We then have speed of movement. So again, this can vary either way. Often when we move quicker with our exercises, we have more momentum involved, and that can make the exercise a little bit easier. However, if we're looking at CV training and we're sprinting compared to jogging, it's going to be a lot harder. So the addition of speed there is a progression. We then have the addition of external load, obviously my favorite. So adding in external load into the body, again, will generally be a progression because we have to work that little bit harder. However, addition of a very small light load, especially for hypermobile people, might make the exercise easier because it just wakes up some of the proprioceptive activation within the capsule. So let's say, for instance, in the shoulder, if you had a little tiny 0.5 or 1 kg weight, you might find the exercise a little easier because you can actually feel your joints and what's going on a little bit better. then I have range of motion. So generally, if we're moving in a small range of motion, it's going to be a little bit easier to control than if I have a really large range of motion going on. Volume. So the volume of work as well can be a progression regression. So let's say I'm doing push-ups and I do 3 push-ups versus 20 push-ups. The volume of 20 is going to be a lot harder, and that would be my progression on the push-up exercise. So let's take some of these progression regressions and I'll give you some examples. So let's just start with a bridge, looking at base of support. If I have my arms wide and my feet wide and I lift into a bridge, I feel pretty stable here, sturdy and stable. If I bring my feet together, my arms up high, lift and come onto one leg, this is a very small base of support. It's just my foot and my shoulders. This definitely is a progression when we're tweaking base of support. Lever length. Now, if I stay with that bridge exercise here, so I come up into my bridge, if I come into a single leg bridge with a short lever, this is easier to control than if I'm taking my limb away with a nice long lever here. That requires more stability through my system. Tempo. So we discussed this with the lateral raise, but again, if I'm in this position, I might come up into my bridge again. I might have 1, hold here for 2 in my isometric and lower down. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this is biasing my eccentric hip flexor opening, eccentric hip flexor strength, which is a lovely way to create strength. Remember, your eccentric work is always a little bit more energy expensive, so a little bit more difficult for the body. Movement complexity. So let's just take a look at toe taps from Pilates. So we're going to come tapping here. So that's the single exercise. If I then add some arms in, that becomes a little bit more complex. I'm then going to add my arms in different planes of motion. So I've got transverse plane arms, sagittal plane legs. Then I'm going to have sagittal plane arms, sagittal plane legs. Then I might tap my legs frontal plane and my arms might be transverse plane. So you can see you can increase the complexity like that. Unstable surface. So again, if we're staying with Pilates based things, I can just pop the ball underneath my hips and there I am back again with my toe taps. Wide base of support again, but it's unstable under my pelvis. I could then remove my arm support, smaller base of support, more difficult. I could create a longer lever from my body, again more difficult. And then we can look at speed. So here, if I'm just tapping away quite quickly, this is a little bit easier for me in this exercise. If I move really slowly, definitely a lot harder. I have to really control the motion coming through my hips and pelvis. If I'm looking here at range of motion, I might want to tap really close to my bottom. That's going to be easier. Then I can increase my tap, so my range of motion is bigger, tapping away from my pelvis. And then obviously volume. So I could do 4 little taps, or I could do 400 little taps, which would be a lot harder. And of course, adding external load to anything is going to make a difference. So if we add the bandits to our legs and we're doing our toe taps, that's going to increase the strength that's required into the hip flexors, into the glutes. Or we might be adding an external load from a dumbbell, moving the arms around as our legs are tapping. So understanding your progressions and regressions are really important. The other thing you want to be mindful of, guys, is that you don't tweak more than one thing at once. So we don't have our bridge exercise, And then we go, oh, that's feeling good. I'm quite good at this now. Now I'm going to add in 3 different progressions. So I'm going to add lever, tempo, and speed. Just tweak one thing at a time and then work with that for a little bit. If you're coming back from injury, you might want to look at the regression. So it might be the same exercise, but you just increase the base of support a little bit. I hope you have enjoyed this video and you can then start to apply this when you're creating your own strength training programs.